Practice trig problems part 2. To finish question 3, I find the reciprocals. Cosecant is 1 over sine, so 1 over 1/2 is 2. Secant of 5 pi over 6 is the reciprocal of cosine, negative 2 over root 3, or I can rationalize it. And cotangent of 5 pi over 6 is the reciprocal of tangent, so negative root 3. In question 4, I want to find all possible values of theta if the secant of theta equals negative 2. Again, I start with my xy axis, and I remember in the first quadrant, all trig functions are positive. In the second quadrant, sine and tangent are positive. Third quadrant, tangent is positive. Fourth quadrant, cosine is positive. Since our secant is negative, it has to appear in the second or third quadrant. The secant of theta equals negative 2. Therefore, secant's 1 over cosine theta. The cosine of theta has to be equal to negative 1/2. When I draw my triangles, I look for the triangles that gives me 1/2. And of course, that's the 30, 60, 90, where the side opposite 30 is 1/2. And I can orient that triangle two different ways. So you can see I have a 30, 60, 90 horizontally and a 30, 60, 90 drawn vertically. Side opposite 30 is 1/2. Side opposite 60 is the square root of 3 over 2. And when I look at my triangle on my xy axis, the angle that it makes with the x-axis has to be a 60-degree angle, because the 1/2, the adjacent side, is lying on the x-axis. So I make that negative 1/2. Therefore, in red, the angle theta made from the positive x-axis could be 180 minus 60, or 120 degrees. In green, 180 plus 60, or 240 degrees. Remember, I want all possible values of theta, so I plus or minus 360n to each equation where n is equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. This allows me to take into account if I'm circling the origin several times before stopping at my angle. Both of these answers, 120 plus or minus 360n and 240 plus or minus 360n, are the correct answer, and I have to supply both of those. In question 5, I'm proving a trigonometric statement, so I use my angle addition formulas for sine to say sine of theta plus pi over 2 is sine theta cosine pi over 2 plus sine pi over 2 cosine theta. I'm multiplying that by the angle subtraction formula for cosine, and that gives me cosine theta cosine pi plus sine theta sine pi. I then evaluate the sines and cosines for pi over 2. Cosine of pi over 2 is 0. Sine of pi over 2 is 1. Similarly, the cosine of pi is negative 1. And the sine of pi is 0. I replace those values in my expansion. I do a little bit of multiplying. 1 times cosine theta is cosine theta. Negative 1 times cosine theta is cosine theta. The zeros, of course, go out to 0. And I get my solution. Negative cosine squared of theta equals negative cosine